Hello everybody. Hey, I don't have a whole lot of time. I'm going to rip the motor apart. I want to count the windings on this thing and see what it is because I want to get a replacement motor for it. I'm going to do the brushless conversion on this car. Got a couple of guys that are interested in a replacement brushed motor. So I might throw it in my number one car, or I might buy a third car to do those experiments for you. I haven't made up my mind on that quite yet. But anyway, today I'm going to rip this motor apart and we're going to take a look at it, see if we can figure out why it failed. And I want to see how many turns are in it so I can kind of figure out if you want it as maybe you do, maybe you don't know. But if you want to go a little faster, you go with a lower turn motor. If you get more RPM out of it, less power, but more RPM. And if you want a little more torque, you go with a higher turn count. So that's a real generalized thing, but that's pretty much the basics of it. Anyway, we need to know what this one is so we can figure out what replacement to go with. So let's go ahead and get this thing started. Well, I hadn't actually planned on doing a video today. I'm a little bit short of time, but this is the 550 motor that I smoked the other day. So what I'm going to do here real quick is try to get this thing out of here. And what I want to do is I want to rip it apart and find out how many turns are on this motor. And because I don't know, I tried to find out definitively. It's the stock motor for this car, but I'm not seeing it anywhere. It's probably a 25 turn, but the only way I know to know for sure is to rip it apart. When you take these out of metal, this is metal into metal, so you need to get a screwdriver bit that fits this properly, put a lot of pressure on it, and you can break that Loctite loose. And if I can find places where I'm not saying something, I may fast forward this to make this a shorter video for you guys. But I just want to see how many turns is in this motor, because I'm going to have to buy a new motor. I think I'm going to go ahead and convert this car over to brushless. I got a couple of guys that are interested in mods on this thing to keep with a brushed motor. So I'm going to explore that also. And let's see, these two are into metal. So I'm going to do a brushless conversion on this car. And I don't know yet if I'm going to just buy a third car so I can do the brushed experiments for you guys, or I don't know, maybe I'll just take car number one and do something with it. I wanted to keep one of them stock, so I'm on the fence right now as to whether I'm gonna buy a third car or put a different brushed motor in the first car. I didn't really want to burn this motor up because I'm going to build a recovery boat, and I was going to use all of the electronics after I converted this to brushless. I was going to use all the electronics to build a recovery boat, and all that is just something so I can go out in the water if my boat, the boat that I have has a self-righting function, but in the event it gets turned over in the water, that's fine. But if the battery comes loose or something goofy like that, or if I run out of battery, you have to cut this zip tie off of here to get all the motor stuff released. In the event that I have to go and recover the boat, I don't want to go for a swim. So I'm going to build a boat where I can just drive the boat out there to pick up the other boat. And for the if this is your first visit on this channel, we did some testing. I put a switch on here to turn this diode on and off because it was supposed to make the car run faster, according to one report, and according to some others, it lets you run it on 3S. This car ran on 3S anyway, but the inside here, let's see if I can get a pokey bit. The fan came loose on this motor, so I don't know if that's why this thing got as hot as it did, or if it got hot and the fan came off because it was hot. So many variables in this stuff. So anyway, I'm gonna get the motor out of here. Let's see, where are we? The black was on the blue. And if it's a DC motor, so if you put it back together, it'll just run backwards. So it's not a problem. My fingers don't fit in here real well, but my needle nose pliers do. You know, the magnets are pretty strong in this little motor. Hey, I found another motor. I'm just kidding. I did find another motor, but I am just kidding. It won't go in that car. It's a 775. I'm building a DC fan for my truck. Yeah, let's see if this is an SAE. Well, that's just absolutely amazing. Why would there be an SAE Allen wrench on a set screw, grub screw, whatever you want to call it, wherever you live? Everybody has their own name for it. Yep, I think this is going to require some heat because that is not wanting to come off. And I don't want to break it. So I wanted to do this in one edit, but I don't want to keep burning camera and battery. So I'm going to shut all this stuff off, and we'll do this in 2 edits maybe. I'm going to go out to the shop and heat this up. Okay, I was able to heat this up with a heat gun, and I was able to get the Allen screw loose, and that is not SAE. Not metric. It is a 1/16 SAE, at least on this car. So I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be that way on every one of them or not, but they definitely had that Loctited into place. Now let's see if these are. That's the wrong size. Well, this turned into a whole lot of stuff. I had the same problem as everybody else. I couldn't get these out. I don't have time, so I didn't fart with it. I just went ahead and drilled the screws out. While I'm thinking about it, if you're going to be doing this kind of stuff, it's not a bad idea to pick some of these up. These, instead of Phillips head, they're an Allen key. Now I will say that the Phillips screwdriver that I didn't have a Phillips screwdriver that fit the screws that I had to drill out of here. Nothing I had fit those screws properly, which I suspect is the reason most guys are having problems with these. They were actually Loctited into the vehicle, or into the motor, whatever, however you want to call it. They were Loctited into position, and I didn't have a single Phillips screwdriver that fit those. It fits these, but it did not fit the ones that were in the motor. So they weren't really engaging properly, and when I tried to back them out, it just sheared them off. And that's the thing I think most of the guys are talking about, soft screws. That's what's going on. This is just some kind of bizarre, I don't know, metric, we'll call it a metric Phillips head. So anyway, these are going back in the car. I've got the button heads and some of them that are the proper ones to go back in here. So you need some of those. Now, this, I'm gonna get a light up here somewhere. This is the circuit board that was in the car, and it says LG 540. So it's the same circuit board that's on the 540 on this 550. And you can see I didn't damage the mount any when I drilled those screws out, so the mount's okay. And I went ahead and used some desoldering wick to go ahead and take the board off the back of here. If you don't know what desoldering wick is, throw something in the comments. I don't know if anybody's interested in that kind of stuff or not. And I just ground the tabs off of this since I'm not going to try to rewind it. I just wanted to get it apart, and I'm running short of time. So I wanted to get it apart as quickly as I could. And see, the fan is off on this thing, and I don't know why the fan is off. The brushes didn't look in too bad a shape, but the armature looks pretty rough. So what I'm going to do, they've got this silly thing potted in here. I was going to try to count the turns on the motor. Oh, I'm going to have to go get the heat gun and get that stuff off of there. This is turning into a way more complicated video than I had time for, but just don't know if this camera's even picking it up or not. Let me go get the heat gun on here, knock some of this stuff off, and we'll try one more shot at it. Okay, I got this all ripped apart here, and I'm gonna say this actually is not a bad little motor. They've balanced the armature, so it really and truly, and it doesn't look like I burned the windings. It looked like I burned the brushes up. And I actually think this broke, and maybe I got a rock in it or something simple like that. And without this to cool it, the brush is overheated. So I don't know that the rest of the motor actually overheated. I think the bulk of the damage was probably done because it lost this. Well, you can see it got hot enough to melt the plastic on here. I don't know if that's in. See if I can get a better shot of that. Somewhere got the focus locked. Okay. So you can see little blobs of melted plastic on there. It looks like these broke off because the pieces of it were up in here. So I gotta say, this is actually a pretty nice little motor. But you can see where I burned the brushes up. And again, probably because the fan came off. So I'm gonna zoom this back out, and all I want to do is count the turns because I wanted to know. All this was done because I wanted to know why this broke off. I wanted to know what happened to it, where the stink was coming from, and that was coming from the brushes, probably because this wasn't there. And the main thing I wanted to know is how many turns are on this motor, because I want to buy another another brushed motor, and I kind of wanted to know how many turns were on this one. So we got there was one, if I can, yep, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. It's a 17 turn motor. I actually was expecting it to be a 25 turn, but see if this will show up. The wire does not look bad. Wind a couple of turns on my finger there. So the wire never got hot. It doesn't appear. Just the brushes got hot. Well, you know, this actually kind of lends to more questions than answers, but it makes me lean toward the fact that this fan broke off as a contributing factor to the failure of this motor. And I don't know why this broke off, but the pieces of it were still in there, so it literally broke off. I'm guessing I got a rock in it or something. Anyway, that's where we're sitting right now. So I'm gonna go with this little brushless motor. Is what's going to go back in the car. And I am going to go ahead and get another brushed motor. Let me see what the motor mount looks like on here. Hey, there's 2 sets of holes on this. They don't line up. Let's see. These 2 line up. Oh gosh, I had that off camera. There's 4 holes in here. These 2 actually line up, but that's going to mean that the spur gear, the mesh is going to be too close. It's the right size shaft, but I'm going to have to do something different to get everything lined back up. But those 2 holes line up perfectly. And these 2, if these 2 did, then we'd already be in business. So I may be able to use a combination. Let's see, got that one there. No, not quite. So I'm going to have to do a little machine work on this in order to make the motor have the adjustment that I need it to have. That's another video for another day. Now we know what happened. This thing broke off and most likely contributed to the overheating of this motor. So I'm going to still have to get another brushed motor and play with this car some more. I'm going to go ahead and call it a wrap for this. And I want to thank all my subscribers. If you're not a subscriber, still feel free to ask questions, leave comments, or whatever. And whether you're a subscriber or not, I'll do my best to answer you. If you got a particular thing that you want to see, leave that in the comments, and I'll try to get to that as I can. So thanks everybody, appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys down the road.